Do you know how to play chess? I used to be pretty good at it, but boy, if you don't do it very often, you get rusty. I'm Don Brandon. This video is put out by Carter Christian Church. Did you hear those chants of defense at the beginning? When you play chess, you need to know how to attack with your pieces, but you also better be pretty good with defense. Defense is important in chess. It's important in baseball and football, pretty much in every sport. I have a 6-year-old grandson who's learning how to play chess. And I was playing him the other day. They have a rule in their house, since he's just starting out, that twice in a game he is allowed to say switch. And we turn the tables, and suddenly my pieces become his and his become mine. That way it's competitive for him. He's learning. So I'm playing him. And I start making a couple of blunders here and there. And I looked at him in the middle of the game and said, switch. He didn't write that. Switching with the enemy is not much of a defense. But the Apostle Paul in today's lesson is being attacked by some enemies. And he needs to come up with a good defense if he's going to hold up the cause of Jesus Christ. He can't switch. Wonder what he's going to choose. Come join me. I think we're going to learn something from Paul in the way that we have to defend ourselves in the world today.
Back when I was just starting out in the world, for a couple of years, I was a music educator in a school, grades 1 through 8, about 200 students. I loved every minute of it. I really did, but I knew I did not want to spend the rest of my life teaching. One of the experiences that helped solidify that in my mind was once when I failed a student in music class and then was immediately called into a parent-principal conference. The little boy's mom was livid. How could you possibly fail little Joey in music? He plays the stereo all day long. Little Joey couldn't carry a tune in a bucket. He didn't know how to keep a steady beat. He didn't try to learn the lines and the spaces of the treble clef, and he was one of the real troublemakers in class. But boy, could he play the stereo all day long. Fortunately, I had a good principal that backed me up on that, but I'm telling you, this is a little bit of a nutshell as to what's going on in Corinth Christian Church with the believers there who have started to turn pretty wild. They are following false teachers who do not know Jesus, who do not share the love of Jesus, and who are actively tearing down the kingdom of Jesus. But boy, they can play their stereo all day long. Last week, we took a break for Mother's Day, but I hope you still recall that the Apostle Paul is under severe attack from the Corinthians, which is strange because he founded the church there. He had a great relationship with these people. He had spent over a year and a half with them, but he's not with them anymore. He's 208 miles across the Aegean Sea in the city of Ephesus. And in the meantime, there has been quite this influx of other people into Corinth. And some of them are teachers or philosophers or professional talkers And in some cases, these are recent Christian converts from Judaism. And they are bending the faith to whatever they say it's going to be. They care not a whit about the Apostle Paul, and they do not know the truth of the gospel. So as a result, Paul has had to pen a rather harsh correspondence. We call it the severe letter. It's lost, but our suspicion is that some of it exists in what we know as 2 Corinthians. And the time has come for the Apostle Paul to start to defend himself against these attacking false teachers. They're calling Paul a fool for all the things that he stands for. And Paul's going to defend himself, not because of his ego, not because of his personal reputation or his honor. He's going to defend himself because he knows if he doesn't, all the hard work for the kingdom of Jesus Christ is going to be severely damaged, maybe even lost, by these clowns who say anything goes as long as we say it goes. And let's just play our stereos all day long. Did you read that opening passage in your bulletins? All those strange names about different chess defensive strategies that are used by chess masters. Having a defense in chess is important. It's also important in baseball or football or in the court of public debate that Paul finds himself. And I'm curious, what defense do you think Paul is going to use? Now, sometimes the best defense is just remaining silent. Like the old adage says, better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and to remove all doubt. And there is a proverb in the Bible that seems to back this up, or does it? Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own ways. What? Those are two successive proverbs, and they look like they absolutely contradict each other, but they don't. They don't. I like the way the Living Bible translates this. It makes a little more sense to me. When arguing with a rebel, don't use foolish arguments as he does, or you will become as foolish as he is. Instead, prick his conceit with silly replies. See, the Apostle Paul has come to the point where he knows, I can't keep silent anymore. Not and preserve what the gospel and the work of Jesus Christ requires. These guys are calling me a fool. But my dear friends in Corinth are fools to follow those guys who are fools. And so, since we are going to have a lot of foolishness going on, I've chosen the fool's strategy. I suggest that I come down to a fool's level and talk about some ridiculous things and see where I stack up with those guys. He calls them super apostles, kind of a derisive term. And he says, listen, I repeat, let no one take me for a fool. But if you do, then tolerate me just as you would a fool, some of these other fools, so that I may do a little boasting. In this self-confident boasting, I am not talking as the Lord would, but as a fool. Since many are boasting in the way of the world, I too will boast. Now you gladly put up with fools, since you're so wise. In fact, you even put up with anyone who enslaves you, exploits you, takes advantage of you, or puts on airs or slaps you in the face. To my shame, I admit, we weren't that weak or that foolish. when we were with you. Whatever anyone else dares to boast about, remember, I'm speaking like a fool here, I also dare to boast about. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they Abraham's descendants? So am I. Are they servants of Christ? I've got to be out of my mind to be talking like this. I'm more. I've worked much harder, been in prison more frequently, been flogged more severely, been exposed to death again and again. 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I have been constantly on the move. I have been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from the Gentiles, in danger from in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false believers. I have labored and have toiled and have gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst and have gone without food. I have been cold. I have been naked. Paul is saying, you guys are putting up with these fools. All right, let's roll up our sleeves and let's see what happens when we get down and foolish. And Paul begins by saying, I want us to look at their qualifications. Let's look at the qualifications of a fool. We expect our doctors to be qualified before we let them practice medicine on us. We expect the same thing from airline pilots. They better be certified if they're going to be taking people up in the air. Even long-haul truckers better have the right license and the right experience. Remember that commercial? Maybe you're smart when you stay at a Holiday Inn Express. But just because you do, that doesn't mean you can do brain surgery or rocket science or even have the qualifications of looking under the hood of a car. These super apostles say, we've got the super qualifications. And Paul says, well, let's just look at those. First, you guys say you're Hebrews. You speak the ancient tongue. Are they Hebrews? So am I. And Paul says, what assurance that you know a different language is it that you know the language of truth? You might as well stay in a Holiday Inn Express. Next qualification. They say they're Israelites. They're members of the chosen race, God's special people. Are they Israelites? So am I. And just because you are racially a certain thing or another has nothing to do with whether you are in the family of God. You might as well stay in a Holiday Inn Express. Last qualification. These super apostles say we could trace our lineage all the way back to Father Abraham. Are they Abraham's descendants? So am I, says the Apostle Paul. And you think this makes you large and in charge and the ability to be highfalutin in a church. And Paul says you might as well be staying in a Holiday Inn Express because that has nothing to do with proper qualifications. And I have to ask the question, what are your qualifications for being a Christian? If somebody was putting together a portfolio on you, what evidence would they find that you are worthy of the name Christian? Some of us could go to a file cabinet, pull out way in the back, our baptismal certificate. I'm a Christian. Others of you would dig into the purse, you'd pull out your checkbook, say, look at my check stubs here. See, I've given a lot of money to the church. I'm a Christian. Still others might have a expensive leather-bound Bible, big one. You wave it around. Look, I'm a Christian. And you know that those things have nothing to do with what's really going on inside you and your relationship with Jesus Christ. Now, those are good things. Don't get me wrong. Those are good things. But they're not the thing. And if we get distracted with the foolish qualifications and all the trappings of the church and miss out on what is really important, Jesus himself says, I'm going to say, I never knew you. Away from me, you evil doers. We better make sure we have the right qualifications. Paul is going to continue on with his fool's strategy and says, now let's look at the progress. Let's look at these clowns. Let's see what their preaching is doing. Woo! Those guys are slick talkers. They ring the bell. And the Corinthians, they say, look at this. We're making progress with these guys. Taking a step or two forward, and Paul says, you are not. Your progress is actually stumbling and falling back several steps. Look what they're doing to you. They enslave you. These Judaizers, these super apostles, these false teachers are now piling on you a whole bunch of other Jewish laws that you better be a part of. You need to do this kind of stuff if you're really going to be a part of Christ. Their progress is also to exploit you. They are demanding expensive payment from you, Corinthians, for the privilege of leading you astray with a false gospel. On top of that, they're promoting themselves, pushing themselves forward. They don't just want top dollar, they want top dog. And Jesus Christ is getting lost in the shuffle. And finally, they literally are slapping you in the face. And here I want you to think of nuns smacking you on the wrist with rulers. Because it was a rabbinical tradition back in those days. If you were a rabbi and your students weren't paying attention or getting a little divisive or daring to disagree with you, you'd sock them in the jaw. Slap them in the face. And Paul says, enough of that. You call that progress? You call that qualifications? Okay, I'm going to continue in my fool's strategy. I want you to look at my credentials. These guys are calling me a fool. Well, I guess I am. But if I am a fool, I'm a fool for Christ. He says, here's my qualification. Here's my credential. I'm a person of integrity. I have manipulated nobody. Look at those guys. They enslave you. They are bringing you back to all the Jewish law. But when I was with you, I was preaching the true gospel that freed you from this law and made you slaves to Jesus Christ. Look at these guys. They're exploiting you. They're robbing you blind for the privilege of leading you into the ditch of a false gospel. When I was with you, I preached the truth freely, and I didn't take one red cent for the privilege. When these guys are pushing themselves forward and telling you how important it is to be following us, the great leaders, Paul said, when I was with you, I modeled the humility of Jesus Christ. I was a servant to you. Big contrast to those guys. And where these guys are quite literally busting you in the chops, Jesus taught that we are to turn the other cheek. And who knows how many times Paul, in the year and a half that he was living with these Corinthians, did just that. Gave a soft answer to a hard response. I know one time that Paul literally turned the other cheek. It's written about in the book of Acts. At this, the high priest Ananias ordered those standing near Paul to strike him in the mouth. And Paul replied, "Brothers, I did not realize that he was the high priest. For it's written, do not speak evil about the ruler of your people." Paul is talking tongue in slapped cheek with a little sarcasm here. And when it comes to those Corinthians, he says, man, it's just too bad I couldn't be foolish enough like those guys when I was with you. I tried, but I can't be that dumb. I can't be that much of a fool. And don't we have to be careful here? Is it not possible that we still have preachers and church leaders, and hear me here, maybe even sometimes we in this room feel a temptation to say, you got to take care of a couple of extra laws, some things. This is just part of our tradition, what we do. We all know places where they say, women, you can't wear makeup. Don't you dare ever wear any pants. Other churches, don't you bring them instruments into our church building. And it gets beyond the church, doesn't it? You cannot be part of a political party and be a Christian. That one. And you better not hold a liberal mindset or a conservative mindset. And real Christians keep hands off from that certain ethnicity or skin color. And they can make it sound really, really good, but it's really, really wrong. We do not focus on what divides us. We must focus on Him who unites us, Jesus Christ. Do you need a lesson in that by just looking around in the world? Jesus Christ is the only one that's going to solve our problems, and we got to cling to Him, focus to Him. Paul says, okay, that's my first credential. Man, I'm a fool, aren't I? Here's my second one. I have made painful sacrifices for the cause of Christ. And then he lists all of those ghastly, terrible tortures that he has had to endure. He says, look what I've had to put up with since I'm such a fool. I'm going to leave it to you to do your own research. Dig back into history and find out how terrible it was to be flogged or whipped or beaten back in biblical times. You can find out when and where Paul was shipwrecked or all of those other things that took place. But I am going to call attention to just one of them, and it's that one. Once I was pelted with stones. Oh, really? Well, that one doesn't sound so bad, does it? It's a bad translation. You get a better idea what that entails when you look at Dr. Luke and what he said in the book of Acts. Then some Jews came from Antioch and Iconium and won the crowd over, and they stoned Paul, dragged him outside the city, thinking he was dead. You don't come back from the electric chair or from a hanging, and you don't crawl off of a cross. And in the same way, you don't survive a stoning, because the executioners use rocks of all sizes, some for projectiles and some as big as boulders, to crush the victim. And the fact that Paul survived that stoning was in Lystra was nothing less than a miracle. A miracle. I want you to take your bulletins. And I want you to look at our prayer lists. And I suspect you will be hard-pressed to find somebody on there that is suffering because of the cause of Jesus Christ. I have to wonder, when Paul brings all that stuff up, what did those super apostles have that could compare to all that? What hardship, what sacrifice had they been making? Or these people? Now, please don't get me wrong. We ought to be praying for people with cancer and sickness and all difficulties. It matters to us, and it certainly matters to Jesus Christ. He feels the hurt that they're going through. But there is a big difference between suffering for the cause of Jesus Christ and just suffering. And we need to remember that when we start to talk about all of our illnesses and our problems and everything. And we also need to remember that if we begin to shrink away from when Christ calls us to a sacrifice that might be a little inconvenient or expensive, the hallmark of a real Christian is their willingness to sacrifice much for the Lord. Super apostles didn't do that. But old foolish Paul, he sure did. And I'd like to suggest to you that this week to come, you look for ways that you really can sacrifice. Please don't just phone in your relationship with Christ. Do not do what these Corinthians were doing, chasing after these charlatans who said, well, you just stay in a Holiday Inn Express. Or all we have to do is just play our stereos. Just give lip service to Jesus. That's good enough. No, it's not. It's not. This week, I challenge you. Do something big, something costly for Christ. What will you do as we stand?
We rose as a congregation and sang the song, Change My Heart, O God. That's our prayer. Because frankly, that's the best defense you can have in this world. You need to have a heart of Jesus Christ. Makes all the difference in the world. What a great day today at Carter Christian Church. Today is Blake Taylor's birthday, this week, and we celebrated that. Blake, your family is an inspiration to our church, and we pray God's blessing on you. Wayne, Debbie, Picard, your anniversary is this week. 3 years. Wow. God bless you guys. I don't know about you, but I hope that you have a good relationship with the Lord, and part of that is having a good church family. We're glad to do these videos. If they're a blessing to you, let us know. It'll be an encouragement. But if you're in the area and you want to check out a good church home, Carter Christian Church is one of those places, in my humble estimation. I hope you'll do that. Well, the week beckons. Hope you'll give the Lord the pieces of your life, he can make it with the greatest offense and defense so that you win. Until we meet again,